Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Town Council meeting. I call the meeting to order. It's 2 o'clock, and for the record, all members of the Town Council are present either in person or by Zoom. Our Town Manager, Cliff Gravier, and Assistant Town Manager, John Apple, are also here, and Molly Daisy, our Town Clerk, will be keeping the minutes. Before we begin, I'll ask Mr. Gravier to please explain to those listening how you can submit comments. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, this meeting is available on 2 video platforms. One is the traditional one we use that's available on the town's website by going to townofbethanybeach.com, clicking on the government tab, and click on the live video broadcast after you click on that tab. The live video broadcast icon is located on the left side of the page. It's also available to be viewed on youtube.com at Bethany Beach Gov. And the B in Bethany, the B in Beach, and the G in Gov are capitalized. You may also record the meeting, or you have the option again to store the meeting on the YouTube site also. Questions concerning any agenda item can be sent to questions@townofbethanybeach.com. That is questions@townofbethanybeach.com, all lowercase. They'll come to us here and they'll be read into the record and addressed during the meeting. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gravier. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the public hearing held on March 15th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the special meeting held on March 19th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's Mr. Kilmer and Mr. Morris. All those in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the executive meeting held on March 19th, 2021.
So moved.
Mr. Kilmer, move. Mr. Healy, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 19th, 2021.
So moved.
Mr. Kilmer? Mr. Shepley? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the financial report. Mr. Morris?
Thank you, Mayor. This report covers the budget through March 31st, 2021. This is the final report for the fiscal year 2021. This has been a very unusual year. Parking and rental taxes were substantially under budget due to COVID restrictions. However, real estate taxes were well above the projected budget. In total, on the revenue side, we collected 102.9% of the budgeted revenue compared to 114.1% at this time last year. Operating expenses were down slightly due to COVID restrictions and the cancellation of several town-sponsored activities. We expended 86.9% of our budget amount compared to 97.6% expended at this time last year. Recognizing that this report is subject to audit, I respectfully move that the council accept and approve this unaudited report.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, the next item on the agenda is announcements. Does any member of the council have any announcements? Okay. Hearing none, I have a couple. Each year at this time, as you know, the town recognizes the important contributions made to our community by two quasi-government organizations, and those are the Bethany Beach Volunteer Fire Company and the South Coastal Library. The Bethany Beach Volunteer Fire Company, our fire and emergency medical personnel, serve to protect all of us, our lives and our property. The Bethany Beach Volunteer Fire Company was formed in 1948 and the EMT service in 2007. And both serve an area from the Indian River Bridge to the state line at Fenwick Island. And this past year was an especially difficult and challenging one for them, and we recognize their dedicated service, often at great personal risk. So in appreciation for all they do for our community, the town of Bethany Beach is making a donation of $20,000 to their work. And because of COVID restrictions, unfortunately, we're announcing the donation today, but we will not be making an in-person presentation. We hope to be able to do so next year. But in the meantime, on behalf of the town council, the staff, and those whom they serve, we wish to thank our volunteer fire company and the EMT personnel for their outstanding service to our community. Is that agreeable with everyone?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. The next one is our South Coastal Library. And the library was first established on Garfield Parkway in 1978. It replaced a busy bookmobile stop. The library was a joint venture. It was sponsored by the town of Bethany Beach, which provided the land, Sussex County, which provided the staff and all operating expenses, and the Delaware Division of Libraries, which provided the original trailer as well as the book stock. As we all know, the library has grown over the years and moved to its present location on Kent Avenue on land which was also donated by the town. Like our fire company and EMT, the library serves not just the citizens of Bethany Beach, but the citizens in the surrounding communities and the visitors. As COVID restrictions have lessened, the library services and hours of operation have increased. So I would encourage anyone listening, if they wanted to use it, to go to their website and check what their hours are now. So on behalf of the council, the staff, the residents, and the visitors, we thank the South Coastal Library, their volunteers, the Friends of the Library, for their important service to our community. In appreciation, the town of Bethany Beach is today making a $5,000 donation to the work of the library. So thank you. And then on another matter, which is not as joyous, because of circumstances, Mr. Fry, who is also the chair of the 4th of July Parade Committee, has asked me to announce that regrettably, the parade will not be held this year, despite Mr. Fry's push to have it become a reality. We had hoped that the state restrictions would be eased and local circumstances would allow us to safely permit large outdoor events, like the 4th of July Parade. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The governor's current restrictions on outdoor gatherings require that anyone who's planning an outdoor event which would draw more than 150 people would need to submit a plan to the Division of Public Health for their approval. The plan would address how the host, that would be the town, will provide necessary equipment for proper hand hygiene, how they will enforce social distancing, including having a mechanism for limiting attendance, and how they will ensure compliance with requirements related to face coverings and signage. As those who have attended the town's 4th of July parade know, it would be impossible to meet those conditions. And on our conference calls with the governor, it does not appear that he plans to lift these restrictions anytime soon. So accordingly, in compliance with the state restrictions and in the interest of the health and safety of our community, the parade will not be held this year. So that means the 2020 parade, which was scheduled for 2021, will be rescheduled for 2022. Is that right, Mr. Fry?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to add something, Mr. Fry?
No, I think you covered it very well.
Okay. And as far as other summer events, Mr. Gravier will continue to monitor and recommend that we proceed, reschedule, or cancel events as circumstances require. And now, before we begin our scheduled agenda items, we usually ask for public comment regarding any item that's not on the agenda. And Mr. Gravier, do we have any?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda are reports. And the first we have is a report from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee. Mrs. Denault.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Our committee had our first meeting via Zoom on Monday, March 30th. All members of the committee were present. The committee members introduced themselves, and then Mr. Gravier gave us a very comprehensive overview of the various studies, efforts, and actions taken by the town in the past based on those studies. Sergeant Patrick Foley of the BBPD, who has overseen the activities to date for improving communications with residents and visitors, also gave us an overview of the activities and efforts by the BBPD in working with the community. We're very pleased to have Sergeant Foley working with the committee. When we reviewed the committee's purpose and scope, we decided to forego trying to develop priorities at this time and to enable us to digest everything that we learned at that meeting. And we'll schedule our next meeting for early May. I must say that the committee was extremely impressed with how much time and effort has been devoted by the town and the police department targeting safety issues and, excuse me, that face the town every day. Our next meeting will be early May.
Thank you, Mrs. Denault. Are there any questions? Can you hear Mr. Fry?
Yes,
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is a report from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and Mr. Shepley will give that report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, Council, the Planning and Zoning Commission met on March 20th. They considered and approved an application for relocation of a lot line between properties identified as lots 100 and 101, Block 28, at 604 and 606 Pond View Drive in the R1 zoning district. The commission also continued to its discussions of the 2022 to 2032 comprehensive plan. The commission will meet again tomorrow at 9 a.m. to continue its discussion of the comprehensive plan. It will also be considering a 6-month extension request for a prior approved PRD project at 857 Garfield Parkway as new business. That concludes this report.
Thank you, Mr. Shepley. And the next item on the agenda is a report from the town manager, Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, the first thing I will discuss in my report today is our COVID response for the coming season. We expect significantly larger crowds this year than we saw last year, and some of the realtors that we speak to are telling us that they've already maxed out their rentals, so this year has the potential to be a banner year regardless of any interaction with COVID. With that in mind, we are trying to do our best to make sure we'll be able to enforce our mask stricture and also enforce some form of distancing in downtown Bethany, especially in the C1 district, and distancing on the beach. To that end, we have increased the number of beach attendants, our code enforcement beach attendants that you've seen, to 8. John and I might be speaking about possibly hiring more as we go forward, depending on how the weekends leading up to summer look. But right now, we do have some anecdotal information from Rehoboth, who has been doing some mask enforcement over the past several weekends, or the past few weekends at least, and they report a good number of problems, especially as it relates to the wearing of masks. They note a great deal of belligerence on the part of people being asked to wear masks, a lot of contention with those who have been vaccinated, who present their vaccination cards, as proof of their vaccination and a reason not to wear masks, and taunting from different people as they approach people about wearing masks and not wearing masks. It seems as if they're not able to really walk the distance of the boardwalk in any sort of a timely manner because they're dealing with issues every 5 or 10 or 15 feet as they try to approach people. I don't believe they're fully staffed right now for their seasonal enforcement of the mask regulations, nor do I think they have their contingent of seasonal police officers on, and I know they don't use attendants as we are for code enforcement issues either. With that said, we may be talking to the council here about some different approaches in the next few weeks of things we might be able to do. And I think no matter what happens this season, that we're going to have to look to a significant element of self-regulation on the part of our residents and people who visit us this year. I think the crowds and the limited amount of staff we have are going to make self-regulations a real necessity here for this coming season. To help the beach attendants and our seasonal police officers, we have resurrected our information booth. The last couple of years, the Chamber of Commerce has staffed the booth intermittently, but we will be staffing the booth full-time from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the evening. The prime purpose of the booth will be to dispense information regarding Bethany Beach and the area. The booth was very popular, people wanting to know about different highlights in the area, places to visit, restaurants, that sort of thing, town services. We will also use it as a location to hand out information specific to COVID-19, our regulations and the state's requirements, and also as a place to give out free masks. Instead of asking our seasonals and our beach attendants to walk around with rubber gloves on all day and a handful of masks and hand them out, they'll be directed to send people back to the information booth to pick up a mask if they're so inclined. Regarding COVID and events, as the mayor just spoke to, the governor's calls, though he remains upbeat and optimistic, are continuing to present data that shows an uptick, an ongoing continuing uptick in the percentage of cases that are being tested positive. The uptick is greatest in Newcastle County, but Sussex County is 1 or 2 points behind. In the last few weeks, it's gone from 4% to 6.4 or 6.5 today, and continues to trend upward. With that in mind, and the real problem we would have in scheduling any sort of a special event and regulating it the way the state would like to have happen, we will be canceling events, special events, from now to the second or third week in June, when we will again reassess what we will be doing in terms of special events. That applies to our planned bonfires, movies, and our bandstand performances. Beachfront lots, you all will remember that we've moved ahead with a test, if you will, to measure the impact of changing what we do in our beachfront lots, our parking lots, and our street ends. This year, we will allow people with residential parking permits to park in those lots for free, as well as people to pay to park. So they'll still be open to anyone who does not have a residential permit, who does not live in Bethany Beach, but they will also be available for residents. We'll be doing that, we'll be beginning that when we begin parking here this coming May 15th. Recently, we had a business owner contact DelDOT directly, or possibly their state representative or senator, and asked DelDOT if DelDOT would consider installing a passenger warning light, a pedestrian warning light at the crosswalk between DeFebo's and what is now the DeFebo's Market. You'll see that's marked right there. There is a crosswalk there. And apparently the Delaware Department of Transportation was told that there is a significant problem there with the number of pedestrians that cross. Staff and members of the police department met DelDOT on site. They were not able to substantiate a significant number of people crossing the street there. And at the end of the day in the conversation, DelDOT decided in conjunction with the town that it might be best, and DelDOT has agreed, to do a more extensive study of Route 26 from the bridge to Delaware Route 1 to look at the possibility of additional pedestrian crossing lights, warning lights, and/or possibly some turn lanes that might help make Route 26 a little bit safer. So out of that, and for us, that is good news. And for Mrs. Denault's pedestrian committee, pedestrian bicycle safety committee. The water department is planned, and it's tentatively planned, and weather will permit this week, unless there are some more windy days than others, that the water tower will finally be cleaned and power washed. That's been a little overdue, and our very moist and wet last spring and fall have really added to the appearance of the tank, and it's not very pleasant. So that's fortunate that that's occurring. We have widened our driveway at the water plant for those that have seen that, and that is because the plant is constantly visited, unfortunately, in that residential area by tractor trailers, and they're not able to make their turn and negotiate the turn without riding onto the grass or the side of the entryway. Our Lake Bethany land spit project is moving ahead slowly. Some of that has to do with our engineer having some health issues and DENREC not being fully open, but we are hopeful that permitting will be done this summer and that we'll be able to begin the project in early fall as soon as some of the boat traffic on both probably the Assoulman and the loop itself decreases. Comcast continues to work in Bethany. All of their work is centered around commercial applications right now. They're putting in trunk lines. They spent a good number of days here in our rear parking lot. It was quite a process just to run cable into the building, but they've completed it. They haven't done any remedial work in our alley, but it's on their schedule to be done. Some good news in conversations the town has had with Comcast. Comcast tells us that they anticipate they will be offering residential service by the fourth quarter of this year. That does not mean the entire town will be able to turn a switch and get Comcast. What that means, for instance, if they finish working in Lake Bethany, it'll be available in Lake Bethany, and as they finish different areas, they intend to make it available as they complete a specific area. So that is very good news. We had not spoken to them for a while regarding that, had not been able to make a positive contact with the person that we're dealing with over that installation, and we have been able to do that recently. The town recently received a complaint from the site manager from the town center regarding the petition that was being sent along with a letter saying that 15-minute parking was not in the best interest of the Bethany business community. Based on that letter, we've conducted a survey. We've found that's quite contrary to what our business owners tell us. They're quite happy with the 15-minute parking and continue to tell us that as long as there are restrictions on the number of people who can enter their restaurants, they feel that the 15-minute parking is essential to the survival of their restaurants. Ospreys, we know we see a lot more ospreys over the last few years. The population has really regenerated. They are apparently adaptable and more adaptable than I thought was possible, because we have a nest being made, is made and occupied on the tower between our building and the fire company. So despite all the work, despite the sawing of the pavement, the jackhammers, the ospreys seem quite content. So we'll see how that works out for them here over the course of the year. A last note, this year we collected more transfer tax than we've ever collected. It's a record for us in the times we have been collecting that tax, $1,600,000. But it's also interesting to note that Google has experienced a 2,450% increase in searches in the last month for when is the housing market going to crash. So in your packets, I've also included the signs that we intend to use for the beach parking lots. I'd ask that you all take a look at them and let me know if you think they're understandable. We had we had some concerns last year that not everyone understood what was on the sign. If any of you have a better way to present this or feel that we can say it differently, that's more understandable, please let me know. I've included also a picture of what our beach attendants will be wearing this year, and it is a brighter green than the picture shows, and it's our attempt to make them more recognizable as we do with our yellow shirts, because that's a significant part of our whole approach to enforcement in Bethany Beach. And Mayor, Council, that's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions? I had one question, Mr. Gravier, on the study on Route 26, Garfield Parkway.
Yes.
We don't anticipate that happening anytime soon, so that if there was any recommendation, it would be done by the summer. It's more likely
It's something that'll
next
be
year.
done in the summer where probably it should be done.
Right,
So I don't think anything that comes of that, obviously,
okay.
won't be completed this summer.
And I do like the sign. Hopefully, we won't have to change them.
Well, I like it too, but do you understand it? So,
Yeah, I didn't understand one of them last year. Okay, at this point, no public comments at this point in time?
no, Mayor.
No, okay, thank you.
All right, the first item under old business. The first item under old business is the second reading, discussion, consideration of an ordinance to amend Chapter 223 Beach, Article 2 of the Bethany Beach Town Code, and Chapter 1 General Provisions, Article 1, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kilmer. Up front, just to let people know, we don't want to take away anybody's enjoyment of the beach this summer. We just want to make it so that people understand what's safe, to keep them safe and to keep other people safe. This was brought to the Charter and Ordinance Review Committee by Mr. Apple, and I was going to ask Mr. Apple if he could just give us a little bit of background as to the need for this ordinance.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, since the code enforcement guys have been walking the beach, this has been brought to our attention a little bit more. Since they received the complaints, they see it firsthand, and then they relay the information on to me. So, of course, the attention to this matter and the safety here has been brought up, and then there was also a few different negative instances, one in particular down in Ocean City a few years ago, where there was a large hole that was dug. A young lady fell asleep in the hole that evening, and as the beach cleaning equipment came across, covered her up, and she died of asphyxiation. Since then, Ocean City has put in place their own ordinance pertaining to digging holes and leaving the holes if you're leaving the beach without filling them in, which is now prohibited in Ocean City. Other renowned beach towns such as North Myrtle Beach, Asbury Park of New Jersey, Nags Head, North Carolina, Ventura Beach, California, all have similar ordinances. And per the recommendation from these other ordinances, from our code enforcement officials, from a group of engineers that have commented on this, they recommended a depth of 1 foot with a width of 2 feet. And this is something that's easy to enforce, where the code enforcement ambassadors can step into a hole easily and say it's up to their knee, and please don't go any deeper. Of course, it's not something that they're going to be policing with tape measures and such. They've been doing this for the past 2 years already, and we're going to keep that same stance on it. It's not going to get any more stricter, but this just puts a little bit more teeth behind it in case someone doesn't want to fill in a very large hole when they're leaving, or if there is a very large hole that is being dug, we can actually say we have an ordinance, please stop, fill it in a little bit, so on and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Apple. And prior to this, there was no, they could ask them nicely, but there was no way they could enforce it. Correct. I just wanted to, one thing, Mr. Apple had passed on to us an article that was in the Delaware News Journal by Emily Lytle, and it talked about, it used as the basis the ordinance that Bethany Beach is considering at this present time, and it interviewed a number of lifeguards and other people built on that about the dangers of this. So it was a real public service that you initiated here, Mr. Apple. Thank you.
Yes, so that was a good article to read. Thank you very much. All right, would someone like to make a motion regarding this?
Yes, I move that the council approve the ordinance to amend Chapter 223, Beach, Article 2 of the Bethany Beach Town Code, and Chapter 1, the General Provisions, Article 1, and that the ordinance be effective upon being passed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion before we vote on this item? All in favor of approving this change to our code, say aye.
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 All
Opposed?
right.
I can't wait till he gets back. Opposed? All right, the item has passed.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is also a second reading.
Lou,
Yes.
excuse me, but could I make a suggestion
Go ahead.
concerning that? Since it's a new ordinance, people obviously won't be familiar with it. I would like to suggest that perhaps the town post that on our website along with a link to the article that the mayor referenced, and I would also add the instructive video that was included in that article from Mr. Apple. I think it would be informative for anybody who thought, now why did the town have to do that? So if we could perhaps post the announcement of the ordinance with a link, I think it would be a good idea.
It's a good
Mr.
suggestion.
Shepley, we certainly will do that. We'll do that the first of next week. And I do want to reassure everyone that our history with the tents should again assure you and assure residents that we will approach enforcing this in a very soft manner as we did with the tents. We had very few complaints. I don't think have we reached ever doing a citation yet with a tent, John? No. And we'll use the same sort of approach here. Right. And this has been done on our beach for years with the guards and again, more specifically recently with our attendants. But yes, Mr. Shepley, we will.
Thank you.
And
Sure.
it should be a lot easier to fill a hole than to dig a hole, correct? All right, the next item on the agenda is second reading, a discussion, consideration of a draft resolution establishing design and development standards for wireless facilities outside the public right-of-way. Mayor.
Yes, and since Mr. Gravier is so conversant with this, I'm going to defer to him.
Well, really, John Apple is, and I'm just like a puppet here. So, last month, the council passed an ordinance regulating wireless facilities outside of the right-of-way. The ordinance called for design standards to be established and created and then adopted by resolution. What you have in this resolution are design standards that fulfill that obligation. These standards have been created by our attorney, who is very well versed in wireless facilities, and vetted by JMT, the engineering company that we're using to help us administer these ordinances. Mayor, council.
Well, so would you like to make this in the form of a motion?
Yep. Okay, I will move that that we approve the resolution establishing design and development standards for wireless facilities in the town but outside the public right-of-way.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? I would just like to make a point. I think this is a very important ordinance, especially how things are changing in this field. especially when we're talking about out of the right-of-way. And I think I think we're actually a leader in this, and I think a lot of other towns will be looking at us to how we're dealing with this, because it is going to be, without rules in place, I think it could get out of hand.
I believe it is important, but one of the things I hope this doesn't create, and it's a very well-done ordinance, it is comprehensive, but I hope it doesn't create the false impression that there is much we can really do here. And when you look at the multi-pages, you look at the design standards, and you really get deep into it, you understand the real broad latitude that these providers have with these installations.
Yes.
So, but yes, I think it's well done. Rehoboth has one that's well done. I think other jurisdictions are beginning to follow suit,
Yes.
yes.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? None. The motion passes. All right, we're going on to new business. First item on the agenda, I guess this is the Hardeman show today. Discussion, consideration, and possible vote to approve the contract for purchase and sale of the property owned by, how do you say his name?
Calliope Dematitis.
Thank you. Dated April 8th, 2021. I won't go into the detail about where it is, Sussex County tax map, containing approximately 2.7 acres of land located on 2nd Street and Hudson Avenue for $249,000, subject to consideration of title, survey data, environmental assessment, and other pertinent due diligent items. Mayor.
You know, since Mr. Gravier's on a roll, could you?
Certainly. Mayor, Council, you have a contract before you for the purchase of property owned by Calliope Dematitis. That property, the tax parcel number is 134-13.19-61.01. It is a 2.7 acre parcel. It is 120 feet wide, 1,168 feet long. At its southern end, it begins at the south side of the right-of-way of 2nd Street and ends at the Loop Canal. It's immediately adjacent and to the west of the Walcheck property, the 12.32 acre Walcheck property, and it borders it almost on its entire west side. The property is for sale to us for $249,000. Comparables that we can find are the $350,000 purchase of a lot on the Tingle Canal front in 2018 for $350,000, and a recent listing on Gibson Avenue of a vacant lot for $525,000 plus. We were fortunate enough to be able to become involved in discussion with the owner after John Apple picked up some information regarding the property and knew of our interest in the property and brought it to staff here and the council. So, Mayor, Council, if you have an interest in proceeding, a motion is second, and further discussion if you would like.
Right, I will move that the council move to approve the contract for purchase and sale of the property owned by Calliope Dematitis, dated April 8th, 2021, containing approximately 2.7 acres of land located on 2nd Street and Hudson Avenue for $249,000, subject to consideration of title, survey data, environmental assessments, and other pertinent due diligence items.
Do I have a second?
Mayor, excuse me,
I'm sorry.
wait for the second.
Second?
Second.
Mayor, if I might add, the property is entirely composed of wetlands that are regulated either by the Delaware Department of Natural Resources or the U.S. Army Corps, or both. But the parcel is able to be developed, and as we've reviewed it and our building inspector has taken a very, very close look at it, we believe the possibility exists for the construction of homes, of 1 to possibly 3 homes in this property, without an awful lot of offsetting other requirements. So again, it is a developable parcel, and but it is wetlands.
Well, but I also refer back to that property up there on Route 1 on North Bethany that was a wetlands that was totally developed.
Well, the 1 to 3 is not doing something like that. That's the sort of like the boardwalk enterprise. Is it possible that you might be able to do more with it, doing something like that? Again, there's a cost benefit, maybe not, no one would do that, but yes, it's possible.
I personally think it's an important purchase for the town. I think it completes that whole portion of the property that we own in that area. And I'd like to thank John Apple for bringing it to our attention. All right, any other discussion regarding this?
Is this the last large parcel of wetlands?
Yes, Mayor, I don't think we've been able to find anything else.
All right. That being said, any more discussion? So, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. Mayor.
Okay. I just make one comment that in adding up the acreage that we've acquired so far, between the nature center, the park, Walcheck property, it comes to over, and this property, it comes to over 48 acres of land out of 638, something like that. So it's like 7.5% of the land has been set aside.
I think we're fortunate in
Yeah.
a community this size to be able to have
Yeah.
done that, yes.
Yeah, that's an accomplishment. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on the town's investment policy. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. The town's investment policy has been in effect since March of 2005, was last revised on April of 2017, and requires annual review by the town council. This policy limits investments to bank accounts, certificates of deposit, and U.S. government securities. We require collateralization agreements when account balances exceed FDIC insured amounts. The annual investment report that you've been given shows that the majority of the town funds are held in CDs that will mature within 2 years. I hereby make the motion to approve the policy for another year.
Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? I have one comment, if I may. It's a small little thing. On the policy statement, the first thing, it says, next to it, federal, state, and local. I would suggest that we say federal, state, and county, because statutes, because what other local statutes would we be dealing with? On the first page, under policy statement, it says conforming to any federal, state, and local statutes. I would suggest that we change that one word to county. Because what other local statutes are there, other than us?
Well, generally, you do see municipal and county referred to as local, so I don't know if you...
Wouldn't the county be the local?
Well, it's just being a little more specific of that, because most of the stuff that I deal with always says federal, state, and county. But anyway, it's a trivial point. I'm not saying we have to make a change. I'm just suggesting. It's a little more specific of what local is.
Is everybody in agreement with that? Do we want to change that to?
We don't have to. I just brought that up. All right. We have a motion made and seconded. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on adjustments to the fiscal year 2021 special fund budget to match grant funds actually received. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. The town applies for grants, grant funds from federal, state, and other sources. The fiscal year 2021 budget was prepared using estimates with minimum grant funding expected. Grant funds awarded to the town actually exceeded our estimates by $227,940. In addition, the town has been allocated an estimated $634,834 from the American Rescue Plan for COVID-19 Relief, which was signed on March 11, 2021. These funds can be used to replace revenue lost or reduced for COVID expenses or investment in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. I make the motion to amend the revenue and expense budget for the town's special fund to match the grant funds that we were awarded to the town during the past year and used the $634,834 to replace lost revenue expenses resulting from COVID-19.
Is there a second? That's Mr. Healy's second. Any discussion? I forgot to ask Mr. Gravier, is there anybody who's commented?
15 or 20 comments, but don't worry about that.
Okay, all right, okay.
No comments today, Mayor.
No, okay. That's all right.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, seconded by Mr. Healy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on awarding concessions for exercise classes to be held during the summer season on the beach. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, this is a matter of process for us, and I would ask that you consider just voting on all 6 of these concession applications at once. They are all vendors who are licensed and insured. They have all been scheduled, and there's no scheduling conflict with any of them, and they are for yoga and a variety of exercise classes. And these are people that we have dealt with in the past, and some of them are expanding what they do on the beach.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Morris move. Anybody second?
Second.
Mrs. Denault. Is there any discussion?
Isn't this an unusual number of applications? You always seem like 1 or 2 or 3.
Some of them are doing different things. So
Yeah.
these are people that we've had work concessions
Yeah,
before.
but I just,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
Yeah,
it
it
is
was
an unusual number.
but it's an observation, I just made it.
And we've had more since then, since
Yeah.
our date closed for this. And I think,
Gotcha.
again, I think it's part of people wanting to do things outside here.
Well, again, I think of all this COVID-related things about getting outside, getting in the environment, exercising, yeah.
Mr. Shepley.
Yes, Mayor. I have 2 questions. The first one is, I think some of these state that they're going to start in June. Does our cancellation of activities through the 2nd or 3rd week of June affect any of these?
Since they're on the boardwalk and or the beach and they do distance, we have not regulated them, so, nor did we last year. for
So,
those that-
so we don't have to cancel those? They
No,
can-
these
they
are,
can on-
these
oh,
these aren't like, again, 150, 200 people. These are classes with a
10.
dozen people, 10,
Yeah.
12.
Yeah, another reason why we don't have to go to Department, because it's too small of a number.
Yes.
Yes. Like, I think it's 100 or more, I think it is the Department of Public Health to get permission.
I
I think
believe
it's 100 or more.
they brought it from 50 to 100, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we're under that, so it doesn't require that to be pre-approved by the state.
Good.
And even last year, they were out there on the beach, but they were all distanced.
Yes.
Yeah, they did a good job.
My second question is, some of the applications indicate that there will be some money paid to the town and some don't. Is that correct?
This was the first year that some of these people have dealt with the form. Not everyone did it correctly. We do not ask for concession fees. We're not having a competition between these vendors. So this is sort of a takeoff from what we do with our umbrellas. So that's what's here. So we look at their business license as their contribution to the town.
And any fees that they may charge participants goes to them?
Goes to them.
We don't get, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Just wanted that clarification.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion on the floor, Mr. Morris, and seconded by Mrs. Denault. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
I'm sorry.
opposed? Thank you. The ayes have it.
All right, the next one, discussion, consideration, and possible vote on appointment of Michael Loftus, not my son-in-law, to be the Board of Adjustment to fill an unexpected term which ends on September 21st, 2021. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. There was a vacancy that occurred, an unexpired term on the Board of Adjustment, and we were asked to fill it. And Michael Loftus, he was one of the first people who came to mind because he's been on Cork and he's done an outstanding job. He's well qualified, despite the fact that he's an attorney. But the fact he and And the chairman of the Board of Adjustment spoke, and the Board of Adjustment, I asked him what he thought, and he thought that he would make make a good contribution to the Board of Adjustment, and I agree with that. So I move that we appoint Michael Loftus to fill the unexpired term on the Board of Adjustment, and that term ends September 21st, 2021.
And that's a form of a motion? Yeah. We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I've worked discussion, I had a class with Mr. Loftus in the past, it was quite excellent.
Yeah, I think he'll be very good.
As I say, it was quite excellent, the class that he taught, and very well thought out, so I think he is a good choice. Thank you.
And I think he'll make a real contribution to the Board of Adjustment.
Yes.
All right. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm still not used to that, Bruce. Opposed? No, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda, discussion, consideration, and possible vote on appointment of Lee Bunting to the Cultural and Historic Affairs Committee. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kilmer. There was an opening also, excuse me, on the Cultural and Historical Affairs Committee. One of the members moved out of town, and so there was a vacancy. Mr. Bunting has expressed an interest for a while now on being on that committee, to the point where he attended practically every session there, and in speaking with Mrs. Olmsted, she said that he did make, he is very interested, he has a good background, and he was making some very fine contributions. He's also on Cork and has done a very good job. So what I would like to do with that in mind, you have his background there, is to move that we appoint Lee Bunting to the Cultural and Historical Affairs Committee.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a contract submitted by International of Delmarva for the purchase of a new side-load garbage truck in the amount of $222,761. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, you have a purchase order before you for the purchase of an International Harvester and a H.A. DeHart dump body. It's a side-loading trash truck. This was funded in our 2021 budget with an allocation of $225,000. The cost here is $222,761. It is sole source because the DeHart chassis dump body is the only manufacturer who makes this type of side loader dump body. And International Harvester now has the shortest lead time for providing a vehicle. So Brett has combined them with the guarantee that we'll be able to purchase this truck and have it delivered sooner rather than later. We have two side loader trash trucks. We use side loader trash trucks for our commercial pickups and our condo pickups, and that's what we have that's able to pick up dumpsters. And Brett is very concerned that any kind of serious mechanical issues, and sometimes when one breaks, the other one breaks quickly, and especially given their age, that we move ahead with this purchase.
And that's a form of motion, sir. Right. We have a second. Second. Any questions or discussion?
No, he can't make a motion.
Oh, sorry, would someone make a
Does he
motion?
make a motion?
That's right, I apologize.
Patrick?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase order submitted by International of Delmarva for the purchase of a new side-loading garbage truck in the amount of $222,761.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Morris seconded.
Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Shepley.
Again, just a question, Cliff. I think the truck that it's going to replace was purchased in 2003?
I don't have that information.
2003?
Yeah, it's 2003.
That seems like a long time. I got to think these trucks take a beating. It seems to me like we're getting our money's worth out of these things.
Well, you are, but the side loaders are not as used as often or as much with the dumpsters as our normal trucks are. So they do last a little bit longer. But the issue with them is the hydraulics with the side loader.
Cliff, since it's going to, the lead time is quite long, do they require the entire amount of money upfront?
I'm not sure how they work that, Mr.
Right.
Kilmer.
According to the report, it could be as much as a year, correct?
Yes.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, the ayes have it. And the last item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a contract submitted by Starfire Corporation for 2021 4th of July fireworks display in the amount of $35,000. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, in late '21, we began a dialogue with Starfire Corporation regarding the possibility of fireworks this July 4th. Had conversations and tried to discuss different issues related to the contract with them through the month of January. In February, we committed with them for the date of July 4th for a fireworks show, and they submitted this contract to us for $35,000. With the realization that we might not proceed with the shooting, we have 6 months to schedule an alternate date if we decide to cancel in mid-June. And we would look at that point in time with the possibility of Labor Day with some sort of a lessening of issues, or maybe more ideally, New Year's weekend here, 21-22, to celebrate bringing in a new year. There is a cost involved with the cancellation. There are some other issues here that we might want to deal with regarding cancellations, but right now I would suggest we move forward with the contract, and if needed to cancel, think about an alternative date, and I would recommend the New Year's weekend.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the contract submitted by Starfire Corporation for the 2021 4th of July fireworks in the amount of $35,000.
Is there a second? Second, Mrs. Denault. Any discussion?
Well, it's more of an observation. You saw in the news journal today in Ocean View, they had Ocean City. They had to sit there and find a new vendor for their fireworks because I believe the other vendor.
Starfire.
Huh?
They got Starfire. Yeah.
They get Starfire, and that information is available online. Their contract is also available online. But one of the things that Ocean City did to make things more palatable for both Ocean City and Starfire is they committed to the possibility of a show New Year's and a show next year also. So they, on their cover letter and their dialogue back and forth, Ocean City is telling them that to involve them in their fireworks
Yeah,
program.
but I think their previous vendor went out of business, I believe.
Many of these people had significant issues and have altered how they do business because
Yeah.
of what happened to them last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? Mr. Shepley?
Well, just my personal opinion, I would prefer that we're in a situation by July 5th where we can have the traditional fireworks on July 5th. That being said, if that's not possible, I like the idea of moving these to sometime New Year's Eve or that weekend to usher in not only a new calendar year, but hopefully a new year for all of us. So I think that's a good idea. I think that is certainly a viable option for us.
And I think everybody would be ready for a celebration.
Yeah, and I think we can promote it that way.
I think so,
and
too.
help the businesses.
Help the businesses and the
Yeah.
chamber.
Good for business, you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good weekend in that New Year's Eve is on a Friday. Saturday, we have the Swim Like the Eskimos. The Sunday, we have the 5K race. So if we were to do something like this on a Saturday evening, it would probably make it a very good weekend for residents and businesses.
Anybody else? Okay. Hearing no more discussion, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, that concludes the agenda for today. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn, or do you want to just? Oh, what? Oh, yeah, any comment?
No?
No, okay. Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in, and have a good weekend.
Thank you. Hope to see you in person next time.